So I had this question for a couple trainers a while ago, and I made the mistake of putting it up on Facebook to ask all of my friends, and it sparked some heated debate. So I'm hoping it'll do the same here. Um, Processed ingredients versus sugar, which is better?
So like artificial sweeteners type thing?
Exactly. So stuff that your body doesn't naturally break down versus the whole sugar debate, sugar causing obesity and all the other health effects that it comes with. Which is worse? Which is better? What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the artificial sweeteners being bad thing, I think is based on my understanding and like recent stuff I've read, is so overblown that compared to sugar, which we know is like really, like we know sugar's bad. Um,
Mhm.
I think, yeah, to me, it like hate like the sugar thing is way worse. But I guess it would definitely depend on the ingredients, right? What do you guys think?
I think like the same kind of cop out answer you give most things is they're both okay in moderation. Like as long as you don't overdo it, then I'm sure you'll be fine with an artificial sweetener or sugar. As long as you just don't overdo it.
I think it falls into a hierarchy. If you're able to manage whole food, your source of sugar is whole foods, and you don't need artificial sweetener, that's probably better than managing serious sugar cravings with an artificial sweetener. But because you're using an artificial sweetener, you're able to maintain a relatively healthy diet. So that would be sort of tier two. And then moving to sort of the worst case scenario would be either of them unmanaged. Right. I have some extended family where, there's 6 bottles of Diet Coke in the house minimum, 2-liter bottles of Diet Coke. There's
Yeah.
no sugar in Diet Coke, but that's certainly not a healthy every now and again. No, it's like every snack, every meal, there's a glass of Diet Coke. That's you can't say that any falls anywhere into the range of healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people use it as an excuse, like this is because it's not sugar, it's not normal Coke, it's basically water. And I mean, that is pretty far from the truth. Yeah.
Also, there's a I don't remember the threshold, but in order to say 0 calories, it doesn't have 0 calories. It falls to a rounding equation to where at a certain volume, it rounds down to 0.
Yeah.
So again, splitting hairs, but important, because when people see the 0 per 200 mil, they think it's okay. Well, 0 per 2,000, 0 per 20,000, 0 per 200,000,
Yeah.
and actually that's not the case.
And can't companies fudge those numbers pretty massively anyway? I heard that calorie estimates can be pretty far off, and like I'm pretty sure these companies could make like a batch that has like not many calories in, and then the normal batches, I guess this is more for normal food, can have more in. I don't think it's regulated that strongly to stop random little schemy plays like that from happening.
Well, it's combusted, right? So they take a pad thai and they burn it, and they determine how many calories it takes to combust it, and then
Right.
that gives
Okay.
you the benchmark. And if I make a pad thai and I happen to use way more butter and way more of this and way more of that, and like a ketchup with delicious sugar to make it have that nice sweet and tangy combo, um, and then I assign it the calories of the standard pad thai that's a different composition, then yes, of course.
Yeah.
Ollie,
I'm
to
gonna
catch you
share.
up, we're debating um, sugar versus processed ingredients. Which is worse? Which is better? Lindsay?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna chime in. So I was pretty strict keto for almost 2 years. So this is kind of my jam. Because I've been on both ends of the spectrum, like totally no sugar to like slowly incorporating it back into my diet. One phrase that really stuck with me a while ago was when it comes to sugar and sugar alternatives, it's not the poison, it's the dosage. So anything in the right dosage can be bad for you. even, you know, too much broccoli, too much meat, you know, there's a threshold where anything can be bad for you. And yeah, just echoing what Adrian said, it's like, I think the problem with sugar and sugar alternatives is that people don't really understand what moderation actually is. You know, they think, oh, it's okay, I have 6 Diet Cokes a day, or oh, it's okay, I have a pastry for breakfast and, you know, a cookie with lunch and then dessert after, you know, a piece of pie after dinner. That's moderation. You know, I don't eat a whole cake every day, but I'm like, yeah, but having sweet things basically 3 times a day, that's not moderation, you know? So it's not, yeah, so yeah, you're right. In the right dosages, either of them are fine. But yeah, I think the problem is you get people that get a little taste of, let's say, regular sugar, and then they spiral into, you know, like they can't just have one little piece of candy. They need to have 10 or 15. So I don't know. That's why, you know, a lot of people talk a lot of crap about the keto diet or low carb diets, and I'm right there with them. It's not the right, you know, diet for most people, but I will say being on keto for a long time, it totally resets your sugar cravings. Totally. Like after basically just eating, like if you do it right, if you do keto or low carb and you focus on like lean meats, other proteins, vegetables, then once you start incorporating carbs back into your diet, like fruit tastes like candy. Like a smoothie to me tastes like that's a milkshake. Like, and I can't eat like a regular piece of cake or something without getting sick. Like it's too much for me. So it's like, so at this point, keto helped me get to a point where I can just have one piece of candy because that's all I can handle. You know, that's just like, whew, because one little piece of candy does have, I mean, that's more sugar than most of us need. So
yeah,
yeah,
totally resets your palate.
Oh, absolutely. Like broccoli tastes sweet to me. Like I can taste the carbs and the sweetness in broccoli and certain vegetables and things like that. Like, so yeah, talk crap about the keto diet. That's fine. But I'm just like, if you do it right, it can be a really great tool for some people. But yeah, sugar, yeah, it's, you know, in theory, not a problem, but most people way overdo it.
I really like that point about resetting your palate. That's how I got my coffee down to just a splash of oat milk. Was the resetting the diet, and then my regular coffee started tasting like a dessert drink.
Yeah.
And I was able to get rid of all the sugar in my coffee. So I felt that.
You know, actually, one thing to tell your clients, and what I tell people too, is because I get a lot of questions from people about like, you know, if I'm trying to lose fat, like what should I do with my coffee? And one of the big things I tell people is get good coffee. Stop buying that cheap, well, I don't know what they have in the UK, but like Folgers is like the ultimate crap coffee here in the US. It's like my stepmom has like a can of Folgers in her cabinet that's like been open for 2 years, and like once a year she takes it out like after Christmas, like I'm gonna make a pot of coffee, and I'm like, I'm not drinking that crap. But yeah, if you drink crap coffee, you're gonna need to put, you know, half a cup of whatchamacallit, creamer or sweetener or whatever to make it palatable. But good coffee, you can just put, yeah, just like what Adrian said, splash of milk, splash of cream, you know, and it's great.
Yeah, like when it's your creation, like I find when I'm grinding up the beans, for example, you don't want to soil it with all this other stuff. You want to kind of see what your creation tasted like, and obviously it's going to taste better because you're doing the beans. Whereas if I had instant, I'd be more likely to be like, oh, I could put some sweetener in this.
Right. Like I see all these creators on Instagram and TikTok, like how to make coffee for fat loss. And it's like, here's these 0-calorie sweetener syrups. And then here's, you know, skim milk, and here's this. And I'm like, oh God, that probably tastes like pure chemicals. Like, ugh, just, you know, a little bit of good coffee, a little bit of cream. That's all you need. Oh, and also never, yeah, butter in your coffee is disgusting. Never tell anyone to do it. It's so gross.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I love it. I don't do it very often, but yeah, it's pretty great. Until you get to the end and there's just residue of butter and you're just drinking like kind of thick coffee-ish butter.
It's a very mouth, like it just makes your mouth greasy. It's like you don't really want a greasy mouth when
So our consensus is kind of the cop out. Sugar's bad, but more moderation and everything.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, like traditionally, I think in terms of like clients, sugar is, it's really bad. I probably fall on the other end of the spectrum here, and not because sugar is so bad, but because it's like a downward spiral, right? The more sugar people have, the more people crave sugar, like Lindsay was saying. And it makes controlling calories so much harder. Like controlling calories for somebody who's like addicted to sugar means they've got this like monster in their brain that they need to subdue just to like lose weight. You know, it can be really tough. So I think, you know, a bit of like moderation, totally fine, but it's like how easily can you manage the moderation if you're having a little bit.
So I want to add in one more thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Jacob. I was just going to add one more thing about the sugar alternatives. Like some people, especially when they start a fat loss journey, I feel like one mistake people make, and what I tell my, can't call them clients yet, I'm not quite certified, but the people, my friends who come to me for advice and help, a lot of times one of the first things they'll ask me is like, what's like a good healthy dessert? You know, what sort of Splenda should I buy? What sort of sugar alternative can I buy to make like a sugar-free dessert? Like, and I just tell people, especially in the beginning, like, don't mess with that stuff. Like, stop trying to find substitutions for these desserts. Like, the goal is really to transition you away from relying on that stuff. Like
cold turkey.
Exactly. I mean, some people may need a little bit, but I'm just like, no, don't be immediately making sugar-free cream pies and, you know, I don't know, sugar-free brown, like that should be a treat later. Like once you know, and actually I even encourage people, like, honestly, just don't even get into that. Go cold turkey. And then once you get to a point where you want to incorporate treats, make the real stuff and just eat less of it, because it's going to taste so much better. It's going to be so much easier to cook. You know what I mean? It's, you know, it's because, yeah, those sugar-free, I mean, unless it's like, I've seen those recipes for like protein fluff or something where you take like Cool Whip and put a little bit of Splenda or sugar-free. Have you guys seen those recipes?
Yeah, with the substitutions.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, if you really need that as a treat, but like, no, starting out, it's like, you know, I'd rather, so for my future clients, I'd rather them just like, don't even think about that stuff and then slowly incorporate the real stuff. Like,
yeah, because it's not a treat. Because if they're going from the kind of full sugar, whatever they want, and they go to that, it won't even feel like a treat. It'll feel like a deficit. So it's like, don't go for the deficit, go for the cold turkey, and then, yeah, and then come back to the treat, like you're saying. I like that. Yeah.
So I wanted to include saturated fat. Substitute processed ingredients to saturated fat. So saturated fat versus sugar. Recently, there has been studies done where it's not so much the saturated fat that's causing like what is it? Heart-related issues, like blocked arteries. It's more of an overall unhealthy diet. So what's your experience with that? Which one do you think is worse?
So I think, yeah, like saturated fats, I mean, you need a fair amount of saturated fat for optimal hormone production, if I'm pretty sure anyway. And like, yeah, I've seen some stuff where it's more like the thing that's actually correlating is, for example, obesity more than other stuff. And then I think there are some situations where people's like cholesterol and stuff does get out of whack, and that probably is to do with saturated fat intake. But I don't see it as much of a, like with clients, it wouldn't flag up to me as an issue. I mean, partly because they wouldn't bring it up, I suppose. But yeah.
I think it's hard to compare, you know, the fat versus the sugar, but I'm pretty sure that at the beginning of the journey, most folks are struggling with sugar. I think when you generally get your first diet journal from a client where they show you what they're doing, you look at it, the first thing that I like to pick at low-hanging fruit, right? So what's the first thing that you can get out of this diet? Oh, look at that, a full sweet, you know, vanilla latte every morning. right? If you change that to a coffee with a splash of oat milk, that's, you know, between 200 and 400 calories saved for the day. I find it difficult to compare the two just because they sit differently. And I've never really had somebody who eats a lot where the highlight has been, holy moly, you have a lot of fat in your diet.
Right, well, it's hard to eat a lot of fat because it satiates you. And this is, again, going back to my experience with keto. Keto is, you know, they promote eating more fat. And the research that I found is that, you know, when you look at macros, well, actually, no, if you look at strictly just carbs and fat and the health outcomes of eating more carbs, more fat, whatever, it's like most Americans, the reason why they're so unhealthy is because their diet is high carb and high fat. It's both. So in order to achieve like optimal levels of health, it's, you know, because, you know, there's conflicting information out there, right? You have, you know, cultures like the Japanese where they eat a very, you know, where traditionally as a culture, the Japanese are very thin. They've been thin for, you know, centuries, and they eat a very high carb diet. You know, so if you look at Japanese culture, how can you say, oh, carbs make you fat? I mean, they're not by nature an obese culture, but their diet is high carb, lower fat. So vice versa, we look at other cultures that eat higher fats, they tend, and if they tend to be thin and healthier, that high fat is countered by a lower carb diet. So the research that I found is basically, unfortunately, you can't have both. You either have to do higher fat, lower carbs, or higher carbs, lower fat. And, you know, keto focuses on the higher fat, lower carb because it's more satiating. But, you know, some people who can't or don't want to tolerate that, you know, if they like their carbs and they like them a lot, then unfortunately the fat's got to go low. So, you know, unless I feel like you have a client that was instructed by their doctor that they're eating too much fat, or if they have some sort of existing heart issues, you know, it wouldn't alarm me if a client, you know, had a higher fat diet, as long as the carbs were in check.
So is a calorie, or does it depend on how it's metabolized?
That one's got a lot of internet buzz around it in terms of being controversial.
I mean, it lets people. I mean, as far as I'm telling anybody, like a calorie is a calorie, but like because you don't want them like throwing calories out. So I want calories to be king. I want calories to be worshipped because it's by far the best way of tracking your food, and it works really well. I mean, obviously, 100 calories of sugar is just going to make you more hungry. 100 calories of broccoli is going to help you being satiated. But I guess that's not what you mean. You mean like, is it actually the same to your body? Which, I mean, no, it's not, is it? Because stuff like protein is harder to digest. And there's like the thermic effect. And so, I mean, a calorie isn't a calorie, but as far as anybody's asking me, calories are amazing. Calories are king. Calories are all we care about because it's just by far the best way of dealing with this shit.
So I guess to add to that, I think that you need to look one or two steps after the outcome as well, because there's the famous McDonald's diet. The gentleman, I don't remember the exact number, but they lost a whole bunch of weight eating McDonald's. But what they didn't do is at the beginning give us their metric on their 5K run. And then on their midpoint, give us their metrics on their 5K run. And at the end point, give us their metrics on their 5K run. Right. And then you get somebody else who's eating roughly the same number of calories, get within 5%, within 2% if possible, with whole foods that, you know, whatever your breakdown is, 40, 40, 20, whatever your breakdown is of macros, and then their performance on the same 5K. And at least for myself, I try to steer people away from the scale. So the scale is a supporting actor. The way that you feel, the way that you look, the way that you fit in your clothes is more important for folks in the moderate range. So in that regard, so maybe strictly for losing weight, you might have I think you could have a really good argument that a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. But when you look at a lifestyle of a person, it's not functionally a calorie is a calorie is a calorie.
Yeah, long term versus short term. Short term, it might work out okay, but long term, it's going to affect your body, your organ function, your health overall.
Yeah, I might even say short term.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't say that all food is created equal.
Like go eat McDonald's for every meal for a week, and then try to go on a date. Like you just won't be a pleasant person. You're gonna smell bad. You're gonna smell bad. And other parts of your date will be affected negatively. Trust me, don't try it at home.
Experience in this area.
Oh yeah, I spent like 7 years where my hobby was drinking multiple 2-liter bottles of Coke and eating pizza. So I have more than 5 years of doing that. Like there was a point where I was like playing video games and I knew I had to do something because the pile of pizza boxes got up to the armrest height, so I had to take them out. So yeah, I have intimate knowledge of what that does to your body and how it just ruins everything. You don't think well.
Yeah.
You don't smell good. Like there's a lot that happens. And could I switch to 1,200 calories a day of Coca-Cola and pizza and lose weight? Absolutely. I'm still gonna smell terrible and I'm still gonna feel like crap.
Well, you're gonna get straight up ill. Like if you were doing 1,200 calories just of that stuff.
Yeah.
Whew.
Never mind the fact that you had like a cup of Coke and 2 slices of pizza and you're like, well, see you tomorrow, food.
Yeah.
No, Adrian, yeah, that makes me think of like, I see a lot of, trainers on Instagram or nutritionists on Instagram and otherwise social media. They constantly say things like, oh, these restricted diets and restriction is so bad for you and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they're like, yeah, you can lose weight and still eat pizza. You can eat weight and still eat a pastry for breakfast. And I'm like, you're right. Technically you can't. Or like, oh, you can still, was it someone on TikTok yesterday was like, you can still have abs and drink wine. And I'm like, yeah, technically, like if you're in a fat loss phase, you can have wine, you can have pizza, you can have coffee cake. But like, in my experience, like I tell clients, yeah, you can, if you need to do it, but like, it's ultimately not worth it. Like, because it's just like what you said, Adrian, yeah, you can have 1,200 calories. I mean, I would never put a client on a 1,200 calorie diet.
No, it was a bad example.
But I'm just saying, but yeah, like, so like, for example, like I go to this coffee shop every morning. It's right around the corner. They have the best coffee cake on the planet. It's so good. It's like this giant slice. It's so good. I estimated what the calories were. It's probably like 400 calories and 1,000,000 carbs. And so the days where I'm like, you know what, having that coffee cake, I'm working out really hard. With the days I try to fit it into my calories, that day sucks. That day sucks so hard because I drop so many calories and pretty much all my carbs for the day for that freaking coffee cake. And the rest of the day, I'm eating chicken, broccoli, and cottage cheese. Or it's like, okay, if I really want to have wine with dinner, then I'm having a tiny dinner, because I want to have 2 or 3 glasses of wine. So it's like, I feel like
it literally doesn't help. It literally is like minus satiety.
Right, exactly. So it's like sometimes these, I see so many trainers, try to be like, oh, all these restrictive diets, don't listen to these other trainers that say you just need to eat broccoli and chicken and Greek yogurt. Like, I'm going to, sign up for my program and I'm going to teach you the secrets of how you can eat pizza and cake and still lose weight. And I'm like, I'll tell you the secret for free. It's just you eat the cake, but then you suffer the rest of the day. That's
literally couldn't agree more. That's exactly
for free. There we go. I gave it to you for free. So it's like, yeah, like you're right. Calorie is a calorie is a calorie, but you're right. If you dump on all your calories in pizza or wine or coffee cake for breakfast, it's like the rest of your day, like it's not going to be a good day.
Yeah, it like this decision stays with you, like you're saying, like the rest of the day is harder. And then arguably even the next day, like there's probably like, this is hard to track in yourself, but the next day is probably harder as well. You're probably more hungry the next day as well. It's just like every decision like that is going to make things harder. It doesn't mean never do it. It just means to be aware. And like you said, even though it's true that you can eat this stuff, that doesn't mean that it's a zero-sum game and that it's not going to make things harder. Yeah.
Right. That's why, I mean, like I said, I really hate this recent, like the current trend, I feel like for trainers and nutritionists is just to speak out against restrictive diets. And I think there's absolutely a place for that for people with, you know, eating disorders, especially like binge eating disorders. Like, absolutely. If you have a lot of mental and emotional struggles with food and controlling yourself around food, absolutely, you know, restrictive diets will probably be worse for you. But for the average person who may not have those psychological issues with food, there is nothing fundamentally wrong with a restrictive diet when you are working on a goal. Like, it can, I don't even like the word restrictive. It's just like, you're just doing what it takes. Like,
it's a decision. Yeah, I agree.
You know, it's sort of like, we don't tell people, if they say, oh, I have a goal of saving $5,000 this year, you know, and then they restrict their spending and maybe go out for coffee less or spend less going out to eat or whatever. We don't say, oh, that's so terrible. You're restricting yourself. You should be able to just spend whatever you would. No, we say, oh, good for you. You're being disciplined. You're committed to your goal. Yay, good for you.
Yeah.
But the second you tell someone, oh, well, hey, I'm working on fat loss goals, you know, I want to eat less cake, you know, drink a little bit less, you know, then people, oh, you're restricting yourself. That's so bad for you. Oh, don't you know, oh, I'm worried about you. Or, you know, do you have an eating disorder? And it's like, no,
it creates freedom in other areas as well. Okay, well now I'm not free to eat the pizza, which I don't actually want because my palate has changed, but I'm free to, you know, change my physique. I'm free to like feel loads better. So yeah, it's silly how people group it like that. Like it's just like it's like a loss if you don't eat the pizza.
Yeah, like I know in my area, I'll say this and then I'll be quiet because actually I gotta go to my class. But no, the trend, there's a couple gyms in my area that are run by women that all of their social media is all about like intuitive eating and counting calories is bad for you. And you know, they literally have videos of themselves like smashing up a scale, like throw away your scale. The scale doesn't matter.
Love my scale.
Yeah, no, really. It's like they have videos of themselves, like, and they take videos of their clients coming in to like bust up their scales, like for their social media, which is fine for them. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But I'm just like, there's nothing, you know. So then I'm this trainer trying to enter the industry and I'm like, yeah, you counting calories is great. And I'm like, when I first like announced on my personal social media that I lost a bunch of weight and I met my goal and this and that, I literally lost friends. People told me that I was fat phobic. I was body shaming other people by celebrating my weight loss. That I was I hate women because I didn't want to be obese anymore. That meant I hated other fat people. Like I got called all sorts of names, lost a bunch of friends, you know, because yeah, this new movement of health at every size, intuitive eating, you know, that it's just, so I've got kind of a chip on my shoulder. That kind of stuff. Yeah, it's rough out there, especially in the world of like female personal trainers. Like, yeah, it's like the cool thing to do is intuitive eating and don't weigh yourself because it's bad for you, and so it's hard to be like the voice of science amidst that nonsense.
Yeah.
So the part that's or one of the convincing arguments I've tried to use against that with folks is that the dieting world, the food out there is a massive, commercial essentially, where there are people spending billions of dollars to manipulate how you eat. So, if you look at it's a very specific argument against what you're speaking about, this whole idea of intuitive eating, because our intuition has been poisoned so badly by the folks that are selling food to us, right? So who are the most successful food companies. You can look them up, like Unilever and all these different companies that are massive, and they own a lot of different product. The umbrellas of all the different companies that they own are huge. What they're doing, where the money is, and then the obesity problem in the United States. And you can't say that a multi-billion-dollar industry that's incredibly successful, that has made many billionaires, that continues to advertise you on a constant basis, and a society that's suffering from these health issues aren't correlated, or even like there's direct causation there.
Yeah.
And for you to be able to intuitively navigate that landscape makes you some sort of superhuman.
Well, that also, I encourage you guys, or I don't know if you guys have run into this yet, but there's a movement called Health at Every Size it started with great intentions, like many, many things in this world. Started with great intentions. It was a movement that was meant to promote, like, no matter what size you are, you can take steps to improve your health. That, that you can't, like, if you are a certain amount overweight, you can still work on your cardiovascular health by walking or just eating more fruit. You don't have to be thin to do little things, that's great. But then it was hijacked by people who decided that obesity it's actually not bad for you.
Yeah.
That it's this huge conspiracy, and there's actually no medical evidence that obesity is bad for you, and obesity can actually be healthy for you, and you're born with a set point for your weight, and there's nothing you can do to change that, and it's just in your genetics. If you're 100 pounds overweight, that's what you were meant to be, and you can't fight that. And anybody who tells you anybody who tells you any different is fat phobic, and they're body shaming, and they don't understand science, and diets don't work, calorie counting doesn't work, doctors just hate fat people, and they don't want you to get better. It is a dark.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
No, trust me, it is a dark, scary rabbit hole I never knew existed until those people started attacking me. And I had to learn about all this stuff. And I'm like, this is some dangerous stuff. And yeah, I don't know if that makes me sound hateful or not, but I'm just like, this is not great.
No, I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for people, but I think at least most of us would agree that stuff is, it's not good. And like you said, it's kind of people, the idea at the beginning, it sounds good, and then it just gets corrupted by just straight up bullshit. I mean, some of the stuff you were saying, it's hard to believe that people are on that side of an argument.
Actually, if you guys want to get really mad, go to the subreddit called Fat Logic.
Fat Logic.
Fat Logic. If you want to get really mad,
don't do it. Don't read comments on YouTube. Everybody knows this.
No, but
it doesn't mean don't read comments on YouTube. It means don't read comments on YouTube. And there's this piece of the internet you just don't go. Just don't wasting your time.
Yeah,
wasting your time.
Or if you're looking for content for your social media, go on Fat Logic and then counteract what some of these Health at Every Size people are saying. Because that's basically all Fat Logic is calling out the Health at Every Size movement. So.
Okay. So the Fat Logic one is like legitimate, but it's kind of on the other side of the argument. I thought you meant the Fat Logic one was the same thing.
Oh no! So it's people taking like screenshots of like Instagram.
Okay, so it's mocking it.
Responding to.
Yeah.
They're responding to and basically saying like, "Isn't this ridiculous?" Like, "Hey, of course this is wrong because of reference." Yeah. Sorry, Jacob, I didn't mean to hijack your debate.
No, this is everyone's debate. I have a bunch of questions, but they kind of take away from the nutrition aspect and go more towards the exercise. Does anybody have anything else that they want to debate first? Does anybody have any questions?
I have one at first I want to say that it's more of an opinion based, subjective, but I wanted to ask about mantras and self-talk. Is it baloney, or does it actually help your performance?
Mantras?
Mantra.
Performance in terms of what, like exercise?
Okay, so yeah, so mantras
like
are
affirmations.
yeah, mantras. So for me, one of mine is just 5 more. I had a really influential coach in my life who said a nice way to tackle a big challenge like 50 burpees is to do 5, and at the end of the 5, okay, do 5 more, and then at the end of those 5, do 5 more, because it's hard to look at 50 burpees and just go. But when you chop it down into 5s, so that led to one of my first mantras that I've ever used, which is literally saying to myself in my head repeatedly, just 5 more.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And so that's helped with a lot of different things. Honestly, not even necessarily when it's something that's 4 reps per se, right?
Helps on your 1 rep max.
Yeah, exactly. Just 5 more,
Just
1
5
rep
more, let's
max.
go.
Exactly, right. So yeah, that's a place. But I mean, if you really haven't had a chance to think about that or use that, and the question isn't really great, or if you have had experience, what are your thoughts on that's, and also it doesn't have to be a mantra. It can also just be self-talk. Like, you're a champ, you can do this. Just literally talking to yourself inside your head, if that's something that you found valuable, or if you think it's just hooey.
I mean,
Yeah,
I definitely
that's
think
super important. Oh, sorry, mate, you gone.
No, you please.
So yeah, I think that's super important. I definitely think there's it's something that I try to drill into my clients right from the off. This idea that I don't want to see empty movements. That we're not just here. You're not just here just to move your hand from here to here. You want to know why you're doing that and how that's supposed to be feeling in order to get peak contractions and get the most out of it. And I think that process is harmed if they rush into an exercise. So definitely, there's a couple of things that I use depending on the context that we're talking about. If I'm thinking your burpees example, something like that, where it's less about conscious contraction and more about just getting through the reps. So usually something on the bodyweight side, the sort of high reps, low intensity kind of thing. Then I tell my clients to find something mundane in their head that they know really well and run through that. So something like make a cup of tea in your head, or make a ham sandwich. Go from your bedroom to the front door, collect the post, and go back. Something just that they can do really simply, and it does seem it's really effective because you sort of, when you start doing, you might be on rep 5, and then once you made that cup of tea, all of a sudden you're on rep 30, and actually you didn't really process how unpleasant it was to get there. And
yeah, you were distracted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And where I wouldn't use that is if I'm doing something where, like I said, where I'm sort of promoting real conscious, mindful reps. So anything on the weight side, like anything above, pretty much any weights, but especially when we get nearer their 1 rep max. So if they're going for like a heavy 5 or even heavy singles or something, then I might. We're quite lucky where we've got a mirror right in front of the squat rack in the gym that I work out of, and so I get my clients, if they're doing a heavy 1 rep max squat or something, I'll get them under the bar and then just say, just look in the mirror, just look yourself in the eye, and just look at that person. I sort of talk them up. Look, that's the strong person. That's the person who's been putting in the time week in, week out here. You look in that person's eyes and tell yourself that you can do it. Just get them to sort of really who must rile themselves up in that way. So then they when they actually come to doing the rep, they're fully engaged. They believe that they're going to get it. And I've seen positive results from that.
Yeah,
So
I think
you guys do as well.
Yeah, I think having people having a positive mindset and having like a growth mindset, and like you were saying, people believing in themselves. I think 1, obviously, like massively important. 2, I think it can be affected by stuff like affirmations and things like that. I think affirmations where you're like, I am going to be rich, or like, I'm going to be rich. I think that side that I see on the internet of like, what's it called? The secret, or what, manifesting your reality. Did you say it? Yep. I think that's like, taking it way out of context and just straight up isn't true. But I think like in terms of the way that you focus in on your reality, let's say, the way you focus in on your experience can be massively changed by, what you think about yourself. And I think you can get a really big dent in that, like in a positive way.
It's
Through
about getting some
self-talk.
focus as well.
Through self-talk, yeah.
Through self-talk. Okay. Well, that didn't seem very controversial.
I mean, it's probably more of how much people think it. Do you know what I mean? I think everybody would say it doesn't do nothing, but some people would say it's super, super subtle and isn't going to make much of a difference. I think with something like this, well, like let's say weight loss, can make a huge difference. That's my opinion.
I think it comes down to a small goal versus a large goal. A lot of times we have these grand goals that have so much that we need to do, and then we just get flustered and then we just don't do it. But you've got the 5 more, and you could probably do 5 more. And it's like getting to the gym. If you just get to the gym, you'll probably do a workout. But if you don't get there at all, you probably won't do a workout.
Yeah, they call it small chunking, don't they? Which is basically what you're saying with the 5 more reps. Cut it up into small chunks, and then you no longer like fear the task or have like a subconscious fear of the task, and you can do 5 more, and then you just go from there. And then every 5 will build your confidence as well, unless it's burpees. And then
at the moment as well. With I don't know what the situation is in America. I imagine it probably varies state by state as well, but certainly in the UK here, I find the general consensus with my clients and basically everyone I know is that, and I'm sure this is no secret to you guys, but everyone's sort of struggling very much with the idea that they're looking ahead and going, oh, how long is this going to go on for? How long do I need to try and be strong for? And so that's another thing that I'm trying to drill into my clients each session is just take it day by day. And not even just to help them get through the session, but just to help them get through life. Because I think we all need that message at the moment. Just stop trying to look at the big picture. The big picture is way too scary, way too uncertain, and it will all be different in 5 minutes time. So just like try and deal with the next 10 minutes. What are you going to do next? And then keep building on that.
Yeah.
I like that, Adrian. I'm going to use that 5 more reps.
Just 5 more.
Yeah,
Just 5 more.
I'm going to use that. I don't love the HIIT workouts, so when I have to do them, it's going to help out definitely.
Can I promo myself just a tiny bit?
Cool.
Oh yeah.
Just for you folks, not for the general audience. Sorry, everybody. I know that you're recording this, but I do a 6 p.m. HIIT class on Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. So British folks, you're going to be up late if you wanted to come by, but it's free if you want to come by. Let me know. I'll give you the link. And I've been doing it for like over 3.5 years. I just had to go virtual now. But yeah, that's where the just 5 more would be quite useful.
Nice. Yeah, chuck it in the chat.
All right.
I considered asking you guys to everyone makes a workout, and then throughout the week we each try each other's workout just to see what kind of stuff we do personally, how hard it is, maybe new exercises, that kind of thing. So
just check my Instagram. That's what I do all day, every day. Bottoms up kettlebell chest presses.
I've recently started putting my workouts on there, especially now that I've started doing like HIIT a little bit more. I've started putting that on there, and then I've surprisingly found how much I actually enjoy doing HIIT workouts. I've never done them before, but over lockdown, I started like making my own HIIT program to like give to other people. And I thought, well, I better test it out myself to see how well it works. And I actually enjoy HIIT.
Oh, that's not a good link. Oh, it's got the Google plus the Zoom in there. Whoops. Ignore the first one. I don't know why the Google's in there.
Chris, I've got to say that's news to me. I'm never a fan of HIIT workouts. I mean, they're just like I'm a fan of them when I'm finished.
Yeah, I've never done them, so I literally started doing like a 7-minute HIIT workout. I did it 3 times a week, and I got through it, and I was like, okay, that wasn't too bad. Then the next week I went up to 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, like still, kind of moderate, not too hard. But I've started doing like 15-minute ones, and now I'm starting to kind of be like, last like 3 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to puff a little bit now.
I'm boot camp guy. Like that's my bread and butter. If you have any questions, let me know.
Nice. Yeah, and you're doing it on Zoom as well. My class on Zoom, I mean, it's not HIIT. There's one HIIT section, but I do feel like Yeah, I do feel like I could do with more ideas, because my one's a bit boring in terms of a lot of the exercises. It's like an upper body circuit where it's like 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off, and
Yep.
then like that's repeated twice, which I think is an all right setup. But my entire workout is like that, and I do feel like although it's a really good full body workout, it's a bit like the structure's a little bit boring, but it just seems difficult to do it any other way.
Oh my gosh.
How do
Okay,
you
I've
do it?
got you. I've got you. All right. Opening up my drive. Here we go. So we've got your basic template, 40-20 or 45-15, whatever you want to do. That's nice. I have found that the nice mix is 4 exercises times 2 before you change.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it. That's
But
what I came to as well. Actually.
but what's important, let's say you're doing a squat pattern, 4 times 2, that's enough. That, let's say one of those 4 is a squat. That chunk, you've got to visit squat later in that workout, right? You can't do 2 sets of squats in a workout and call it a day. So, for example, I might go some sort of cardio, some push-up, squat, and then some sort of cardio. Then the next set will be some sort of cardio, reverse plank or something, then a sumo squat, and then, right? Like if I want to deliver, a squat strength and conditioning work to my client, I have to be mindful of how many sets of squats exist through the entire workout. Right? Like nobody goes to the gym, does 2 sets of bench press, calls it a chest day and goes home. Right?
I
Same
mean,
concept. I mean, you shouldn't.
yeah, I mean, you could. Well,
You could, but
I've seen
you
some
wouldn't.
science.
You could, but that you'd call that a chest day? Like, yeah, maybe. So okay, so that's one important thing.
100% seen people do that.
Yeah.
I've seen some. I've seen some. I mean, this is definitely a different thing, but I've seen some decent research on, the diminishing returns you get after one really good set. But I mean, doing a set of bodyweight squats isn't that. So yeah, you're right. You want the higher volume.
So then I've got the move and hold. So you've got 10 seconds movement, 10 seconds static. So squats, 10 seconds of squats, then a 10-second hold at the bottom. Right, and that creates a nice fun little pattern. So you've got the movement and the hold. And then building on top of that, then I have, where is it here? It's the one that I'm doing right now. Strength, sprint, stop. So some sort of strength-based movement, something that correlates or is similar to that movement, but is very sprint or cardiovascular intensive, and then something that correlates to that is a static hold. So strength might be feet elevated push-ups for somebody who's pretty good at push-ups. Then plyometric push-ups off a wall or an elevated surface so you can keep going. That's your sprint. And then hold at the top of a plank. Right? So you have a strength piece, a sprint piece, and a stop or static piece for the same area. And this is all just plays so that you could get hit to be, your clients are going to get kind of bored of 45-15 nonstop. So you want to play around with it.
I'm going to use them. Thanks.
There's a pretty good that I've done a bit recently. I think it's called like a 5-10-20. So you do 5 sort of like a strength based. So like Adrian was saying, maybe, elevated feet, press ups. You do 5 reps of that, and then you go into a 10 rep of something. So you might move to sort of, moderate level, like floor chest flies or something if you've got the equipment, and then you go into something like that you just like rep out to like finish off on the chest. Mm-hmm. So maybe I don't know, maybe more press ups or maybe some pike push-ups if you're doing like want to add a little bit of shoulders in to finish that kind of like frontal like delta area.
I love that idea, but it's hard. It'd be hard to set that up with. It'd be hard to set that up with a whole group. So part of the problem with the group stuff, especially on Zoom, is like, for one, you need these exercises to have like an easier variant and a harder variant. You need to, when you're explaining the exercises, for example, press up, you need to be like, right, full press up. If anybody wants to do decline press up, that's harder. Wall press up, like 3/4 press up. So for something where there's 3 movements like that, it's going to be really hard to scale that for everybody in the class, even though I think that's like awesome and actually better than the boring ones that I end up using. Should we move on to another one? Jake, you sound like you got a couple more. I'm excited.
I always have some. Does anybody else have any?
Well, I know we briefly touched on it last week, but I know Adrian last week brought up a like sports enhancement performance drugs. I'm quite curious to talk about that a little bit, maybe towards the end.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we can talk about that now if people are happy to.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So, what's your take, Chris?
Oh, my take. I mean, I know Adrian was touching on a little bit more about kind of almost in like a rehabilitation kind of way, using like steroids or testosterone or whatever you're going to use. But I've only ever known it really for like your bodybuilding. So I would say generally, at the end of the day, if you use them, I don't really care. I just hate it when you can tell someone's used it and then they lie about it and say, "Oh, I'm I'm all natural." Which you might be natural now for the past 3 years, but 4 or 5 years ago you was using it to get to this point, and now you're just maintaining.
And you have permanent gains from that point. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And then you claim yourself as like natural, whereas I have like massive respect for people that use it and just say, "Yeah, I use it." Like, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's damaging and dishonest to not I can't remember the word, to not reveal that you've been doing it, for want of a better word. Especially when it's like the amounts where it's not like an injury helping thing, it's not TRT.
Yeah.
It's like you're taking excessive amounts, and then I mean it takes away all your credibility. I think if somebody found out about that and you've been hiding it, but using them, I don't think takes away your credibility. Just be open about it.
No, yeah, because I mean, to be fair, I feel like I'm one of these people where I would love to see like a steroid Olympics. Like you've got all these people that they've pushed themselves to the peak, and now it's like, all right, now let's see where we can really push the human body, like using drugs.
I mean, it sounds like Mr. Olympia. That's basically what that is.
Is in like sub 5 seconds.
I mean,
I would love to see that.
Would it make? I don't think it would make that much difference for stuff like sprinting or stuff like that. I mean, for sprinting, it makes some difference, but I think, I mean,
But like shot put, javelin, just like people that are like, I was using it until like a month ago. Like, I'm gonna like break the world record right now.
Oh, there'd be like deaths and stuff.
Look at the current like Russian team situation.
Yeah.
Right, where they have been banned for, I believe, one Olympics. I don't remember exactly, but anyway, there's a wonderful documentary on Netflix. I can't remember the name, but
Icarus.
That's it. Thank you very much. And then there's another documentary not on Netflix, Bigger, Faster, Stronger, that touches on these. But what I wanted to say was that this Russian program, where in theory very many of the athletes were on some sort of drugs, they're not just sitting on piles of gold medals compared to everyone, right? It's competitive. So either that means that all of the other teams are also doping, or like Chris was saying, that yes, it's going to give you that edge, but no, it's not going to change the game completely.
But what I would say is, what were they taking? Because I based on my understanding, which is not much at all, so feel free to correct me, it's not like they were using everything. They were just using some things they thought they could get away with. True.
Yeah, it wasn't just like right. It's not the whole free for all Olympics. But if you look at like if you look at pride fighting, which was sort of unregulated a fighting championship like UFC now, but a little bit older. It was famous for the fact that I think there was even a time where there wasn't even a piss test, and a piss test is just like the easiest, most ridiculous thing to cheat, right? And there wasn't even one of those. And so they were monsters, but they're also like, there's some serious problems with their bodies now.
Oh yeah. I mean,
and
obviously,
you have to. I think that you have to, as an organization, I think you have to take responsibility for what's going on with the athletes. It's a different topic, but like the NHL was responsible for the lack of helmets, right? They are responsible for protecting the brains of their athletes. So and so that whole idea of like, if it's going to a very high level, I have a tough time getting behind it. The way that the time that I see it as a positive is where you create sort of this baseline. So the healthy level of testosterone of a 25-year-old athlete. I have no problem with a 50-year-old doing a small amount of testosterone replacement therapy or some sort of work to get their testosterone to the level of a healthy 25-year-old.
I mean,
right?
Isn't there things where you're even allowed to compete when you do that? I think in most things,
yeah, UFC had
TRT
TRT for a while. The
Yeah.
UFC had TRT for a while, but that was
gets abused.
because it was basically abused.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it that's really interesting is, which is in Bigger, Faster, Stronger, they talk about folks who use performance-enhancing drugs because it counteracts other conditions like HIV/AIDS, diabetes, other muscle and bone disorders, and things of that nature. One of the people that was talking about it was HIV positive, and they were constantly 30, 40, 50 pounds underweight no matter what they did. They got on TRT and now they look like a really healthy, strong, buff person, right?
Yeah.
And so and they wouldn't be there without that that supplementation. And then it sort of brings me over to a different area. Have you heard of microdosing various things like super common in Silicon Valley, in California, microdosing?
Well, like LSD, or are you talking about something?
Yeah, those kinds of things, right? And the microdosing, their brains are just firing at a higher rate. But then, of course, when it stops being microdosing, then you run into problems. Same with the TRT, right? Like you start doubling your dose, and all of a sudden you're getting into a problem.
Yeah, and I mean those things do build tolerance. So how would you keep microdosing? Yeah, if you're doing it every day, I mean something like isn't with stuff like LSD, I think the tolerance goes pretty crazy. So it'd be hard to keep microdosing.
What about nitrous oxide? Like who was the biker, Armstrong, who that's what they got him on. He was taking nitrous oxide supplements.
Nitric oxide.
Oh,
I think because I thought you meant like laughing gas. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. I may have been wrong anyway, but
Puts it on the back.
The Tour de France is a long race, man. You got to make your own entertainment somehow.
Yeah. Do you think that's worth an investigation, or is that something that should be allowed in cardio-based endurance type of races?
Yeah, because where do you draw the line with these things? Because that's where some of the cutoffs for like steroids versus supplements is just that it works. Because didn't they start banning like L-carnitine injections or something when they started realizing that they worked? And they were a supplement for ages that did next to nothing in normal doses.
So I guess what we're bringing into the mix, because I think that my impression was that the general question was, are performance-enhancing drugs okay? But if we're asking, are performance-enhancing drugs okay in competition, I think we change the question quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because like if I'm pushing the limit, if I'm doing TRT, maybe a little extra other than TRT, because I want to get that video of me like crushing that 500-pound bench that I've never hit before. So that's my obsession. If I hit that 500-pound bench, the person 6 feet to the left of me that's deadlifting is not adversely affected, right? But if I'm part of a community of cyclists that are, high level but amateur, but they respect each other, and I'm doping to the nines and crushing them all, and they're all just like, wow, man, why didn't you go pro? I was like, oh, I just missed the window, I don't have the time, I have kids. And you're lying to them all, right? Well, you're actually robbing the first place position of what is kind of, as by social contract at least, understood to be sort of natural amateur cycling competition in your area, right? And so those two things I think are really different.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole. Yeah, I'd say they're both on a spectrum where the former is super to the okay side. I mean, you could make a weak argument that there's downsides to that, but definitely compared to the cycling thing, I mean, that would just be so annoying. I can't imagine if like your friends started doing that and then didn't reveal it, and it's like we've all been like competing on this for ages. I can't believe you didn't say it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd
we're
be
all
super
looking
bad.
up to you, but we should have been looking up to that tiny little vial that you've got in your fridge.
And we were like copying your like eating plan and your training plan.
Right. Oh yeah, and so there's a place. That's a super good point, Freddie. When profit comes in, that's a place where the deceptive aspect of it. Like not like a GQ cover 6-pack kind of thing, not like a Captain America looking amazing on during a movie kind of a thing, but more like and they cover this in Bigger, Stronger, Faster, right? They're like, I use this supplement, and it's just this clearly right roided up super athlete model, right?
Yeah, and they're trying to sell their creatine.
Exactly, and they're
Yeah.
trying to give you the idea that this, this whey powder is going to do what that guy's like horse testosterone injected directly into his ass is going to do, right? Like not the same.
Yeah.
Because I was actually just quickly doing some Google searches on just different types of sports enhancement, and I didn't realize how many of them started off as a drug that you give to cattle or farm animals.
Yeah.
Increase their muscle mass and reduce the fat on their body. And then someone was like, wonder how we could use this for humans. And then like you were saying earlier, it was used as a kind of almost like a counter atrophy kind of drug. And then people just started abusing that kind of version.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like the usage, just once people realize something works, they just abuse the hell out of it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So how about some of the famous Instagrammers who may or may not be natural? I'm going to bring one up here, and I know some of you follow her.
Ooh, a little bit of a name and shame.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I've got my Instagram ready to go search him.
Okay, I got two. Bradley Martin.
Oh, yeah.
Natural or not?
No.
Sometimes
Bradley
it's
Martin.
Photoshop. Sometimes it's Photoshop.
Sorry. Okay. Bradley Martin, and who else?
I mean, I like the dude, and I've followed him for a few years, but no offense, Bradley, but
when your bicep has a bicep, come on.
Yeah. Bradley, if you're watching this, I'm sorry.
Yeah, seriously. Who else you got?
Steffi Cohen.
That's
a tough one.
Interesting.
Was it Brad MPT? Is this the one?
Huh?
I got the wrong one.
So Bradley Martin with a Y.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I was looking at the wrong guy, and I was like, pretty sure this guy's natural. It's like some PT called Bradley Martin.
Random dude who collects stamps. I think this guy's natural.
Okay, no, this guy. I mean, isn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it the especially the front delts? You can really tell. I've been lifting for years, and my front delts have not gone anywhere. And this guy's shoulders are like a frigging boulder. This guy, there's no way this guy's natural. Does he claim to be natural?
I feel like have you ever been on the subreddit Natty or Not or something, or Natty or Juice or something like that?
I haven't.
No.
It's quite I mean, it's not that interesting, but it is basically people putting up a picture of an Instagrammer or bodybuilder being, is he natural or not? Is this and it's just people going no, you could attain, this might be attainable if you do this, this, and this. And some of them are just no fucking way is this guy natural.
Because
you could just look at natty or juicy, I think it is.
Because I mean, in theory, people can have freak genetics where they just get way bigger than the average person. But then it's do you really? I don't trust people. If they've done let's say they've done a couple cycles, and then they're getting loads of flack, people asking them if they're natural because they're interested in how big they are. I can just see how people would lie about it. I can see how easily people would let themselves off the hook and say, no, well, that was 5 years ago. But obviously it's super relevant.
Yeah.
I actually got the wrong guy. I meant Brad Castleberry.
Let's have a look.
He's the fake weights guy who did like some crazy
What the fuck?
record lifting as a natural bodybuilder.
I mean, I don't believe he's natural.
Jesus Christ, no, not a chance.
But
No,
so
Those traps.
yeah, yeah, and you got to. So I try and take into account, because I've seen some of these people who claim to be natural, and their photos, you're like, you're definitely not natural. But then it turns out they're actually just photoshopped. But this guy, like, I mean, that would be some pretty good photoshopping for a natural.
I mean, I'm looking at this one picture, and he looks like a mini Hulk.
I mean, he must be like over 100 kilos. I mean, massively over 100 kilos. There's no way.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
So like Steffi Cohen is tricky, right? Because she's a doctor of physiotherapy.
Yeah,
She's in competition, so she's competed at the highest level and has a world record. So I don't know how rigorous the doping check is.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a hard one.
I think it would be incredibly hard to say that at no time in her life ever, for any training phase, has she ever taken any of the things on the PED, on the major PED lists.
Yeah.
Right? Like 100% clean, 100% clean their entire life. Right? That, you know, I would be really impressed if that was the truth.
Yeah.
Right?
So she allowed her 11 world records with that, competing as natural.
So I guess
the
answer to that isn't so much that she passed the test, but that she followed the guidelines, right? Because I'm not sure if the guidelines indicate about, like, let's say I was really reckless, and when I was 17, 18, 19, I was doing a bunch of testosterone, a bunch of like HGH because all the bros are doing it, and now as a 27, 28-year-old, right, that I'm a responsible, clean athlete and I follow these guidelines for, you know, this lifting meet, you know, can they dig that far back? And I don't know, I haven't looked at their regulations whether they do say something like that, like you need to, like for the Olympics you have that health passport that follows you around, and so in theory, you know, they can draw blood from you in 2012, and with new technology in 2020 detect, or 2021 I guess, detect that you were on PEDs 8 years ago. PEDs they could not detect back then, and that's part of your health passport, and then you can lose your medals from 2012 forward.
Is that with your old blood, or
with your old blood that they keep on record? That's right. They keep your old blood on record.
That's crazy.
And if a technology changes, if a testing technology changes, and they look at it, that old sample with this new screening technology, and they find a PED that was previously undetectable, because that's the game, right? Scientists come up with an undetectable PED, they find a way to detect that PED, scientists come up with a new undetectable PED, back and forth. But the health passport with these Olympic level athletes, you know, they'll take your blood from 8 years ago and do these new tests, and that could discount your medals for several Olympics worth, right? But I don't know if the powerlifting has that rigor. So like if you have to be clean for a year and a day, then she probably should keep her titles.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's especially with stuff like bodybuilding, because you really, if you compete when you're 30, and like you were saying, when you were 20, all you and your bros at the gym were doing all this stuff, it's actually not a fair competition. Like, knowing what we know about how the human body can keep muscle it could have never made, it does completely skew the competition. But then, yeah, how do you test for that? How do you actually make sure that's not happening? But that's the annoying thing about like bodybuilding as a competition in general, because, you know, there are these chemicals that can just help like ridiculous amounts.
Yeah, Steffi Cohen.
Hencher than me.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't know if you follow her often, but, you know, when you see her like boxing, I'm like, she would beat the shit out of me.
Nah, no she wouldn't. No she wouldn't. I've got 10 years of kickboxing. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. She doesn't know how to recruit her strength.
Adrian will protect us.
No. I'm just saying that like the yeah.
Doesn't translate. It doesn't translate over.
It doesn't
I see what you're
translate.
saying.
It just
Sorry,
doesn't
yeah,
translate.
yeah, for sure. A trained fighter will absolutely destroy like just a henchman person for sure.
And just like a regular average person that knows how to punch will generate more power because they're recruiting their entire body.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how big her triceps
have you
are.
ever seen her do a boxing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She boxes with her arms, which is very, very normal. Like every person that I've ever boxed with at the beginning, every person that I've ever boxed with at the beginning boxes with their arms. And if you have really strong arms, then you can get away with it, right? I bet you there's a sting, right? But you know, a 130-pound Thai fighter that I've held pads for that knows how to recruit their entire body to punch, and I literally have bruises up and down my elbows after holding pads for them, and I'm 205. Like it's just night and day. Now, if she had that strength and the technique, then you'd be like, okay, watch out.
Yeah.
Like Tyson, right? Tyson looks really jacked, but he also had the biomechanics of being able to just like knock your block off.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive, of course. Like,
of course.
Yeah. All right, Jake, what you got?
Okay. As far as shoulder raise and pull downs, behind the head or in front of the head, is there a wrong one?
Yes.
I'm going to go with yes. I don't have anybody do behind their head, especially because shoulder flexibility is usually an issue. And if someone has the shoulder flexibility, and it's kind of just, it's putting the joint out of its socket to do that motion.
Yeah, I actually, I'm not sure of the exact mechanics like you probably are. I've just always heard that it's dangerous, and obviously people's bodies get like contorted, and so I've always avoided the behind the head. But I couldn't actually do.
Ineffective.
And it's ineffective. Yeah. So
or
those
at least,
are the two reasons.
Not necessarily any better than the
it's
normal
not
way.
better, yeah, and it's sketchy, yeah. But I will say that I don't actually have my explanation to somebody of why not. Actually, wouldn't be very solid. So I'd be interested to hear your guys.
I got one. So my explanation in those regards typically falls in line with, does this translate to real life movement at all? So your overhead press, I mean, once we can travel again, you're going to put luggage in the overhead compartment, right? You're not going to pick up the luggage, put it behind your head, and then put it in the overhead compartment. It just doesn't translate. Doesn't make any sense. Same with sort of the lat pull down, right? Do you pull the lat pull down to your chest, or do you pull the lat pull down behind your head? Well, are you climbing a fence by stabbing your head through the fence and then lifting yourself up? Or are you climbing a fence by reaching forward and pulling yourself up? Which one translates better to a pull-up? Just like that tends to satiate most people who are curious, and dodges the, well, at this angle, the shoulder joint and the teres minor and the blah, 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 all of a sudden stuff that, you know, I don't want to fake because I don't have that level of anatomy.
Yeah.
I think it's doable. People can get away with it if they have that shoulder flexibility, but
because there's no real benefit, and it's not any more good at promoting recruitment of the muscles or getting a better range of motion or any of the factors that are actually really important to us. That even if someone had that flexibility, I can't imagine any reason why I deliberately choose them to do or prescribe them to do behind the head movement rather than just doing a standard in front of the head.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I mean, I agree with you. Like, I've never done like a behind the head like lat pull down, but I recently come across an exercise for traps, which is basically the same movement, except when you've got your arms on the bar, you shrug your shoulders, and then keeping your shoulders shrugged, you then bring it down.
And you bring it down to behind.
Yeah, so you shrug it down and to behind your neck. So if your arms are up, shrug your shoulders up, and then keeping them up, bring it far down, and it just like finds your traps.
Do you remember where you found that?
It was on this program I saw through you familiar with Athlean X?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I am
He was
familiar.
on one of his programs.
Yeah, it's like those hyper. I don't know if it was Athlete X, but there's another one which was the maximally shrugged tricep extensions, and how that isolates the triceps more because you can't recruit other muscles, and just like these so subtle variations on movements that bodybuilders like to use. The traps one makes sense once you've got a cable machine and you're in load, right? So you've got your position, you do the full shrug, and then you try your tricep extension, that shrug position. Again, this is the person who's like, I've gotten maximum hypertrophy on my triceps, and I've got 17 variations of this exercise, and I'm improvising an 18th new way to stimulate this muscle that I can't seem to get to grow.
Niche.
Like it's so niche. It's so niche.
Probably not at all applicable for the average client. So maybe if you've got a bodybuilder or an athlete, but actually for Jeff, who just wants to lose some weight and get generally a bit fitter, it's probably not the right focus, is it?
Yeah, Jeff could just do a tricep extension.
Yeah. Jeff will get just as good results.
And just focus on balancing your macros. Don't worry too much about saturated or unsaturated. Do your tricep extensions. You'll be fine, Jeff.
When I have people do tricep stuff, I don't have them shrug, but I have them because you tend to roll your shoulders forward, right, to get that maximum push down.
Yeah, using like chest and stuff.
Back, scapular traction, depression. From there, I feel like that.
I would consider that like form. Yeah, I'd definitely teach that.
Yeah, shoulders, like I always do my shoulders back and down, like bringing them as far back as possible.
Yeah.
And that's where I do my tricep extensions.
Yeah. For me, that's correct. That's like that. That's what I think of as like correct form for that. Yeah.
So I just got inspired by what you were just talking about. Do we want to maybe pick an exercise that we'll talk about every week?
I like that. Yeah. I love talking to people about form stuff. I think.
Do you want to limit it as well? Because I'm scared that we'll sit there for too long talking about it. But like a 10-minute, or like everybody gets like 3 minutes to cue something.
Yeah, like
or something like that.
Yeah, I think limits on it could be useful. That way we keep it nice and quick fire. And then obviously if we want to break the limits and we're really enjoying it and it's valuable, then we keep going.
If it becomes debate day, obviously we need to we should sit down and break it down and stuff like that.
But ideally I think for form, we should have we should be thinking quite similarly, hopefully.
Yeah, but I'm really excited by that, because that's one of the things that I miss talking to. You'd have those like walk and talks when gyms used to be open here. You'd be walking around with other trainers, just being like, "Oh, I couldn't get blah 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 to do this movement." Okay, have you tried this new one I just learned by watching somebody on Instagram? You know how you sometimes do certain core exercises, you want the lower back into the ground, right? You want to have that connection between the lower back. You want the transverse abdominals working, like a leg raise, leg extension type of movement. You don't want that lower back down. So this person's cue was, imagine I tucked a water balloon under your lower back and you have to pop it really hard. Because what I see a lot is people they'll touch their lower back down, and then as soon as the work starts, their lower back starts to quiver or arch. Yeah. But if you're like, no, you've got to squish that water balloon really hard and pop it the whole time. You have to be mindful of pushing that lower back down. Anyway, but yeah, we pick an exercise and we go through some of our favorite cues and some of our experiences with it for next week.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Idea? Okay,
cool. And I find with the abdominal stuff, for example, like you were saying, the lying down ones like hollow hold or something like that, but also plank. It's like I want to tell people to posteriorly rotate the pelvis, and it's like
dolphin back.
What's that? I've not heard
dolphin.
That.
Well, think of the back of a dolphin.
Oh, to get it to
make your back like a dolphin.
Yeah. No, that's a good one actually. I might use that because sometimes you find yourself. I mean, for me, I just can't let go of flexion and extension. I'm always like, right, extend, and then I'm like, arch. No, not you know what I mean. And you want to use the terminology that people are going to relate to, but then some of the terminology that we know is just so much more. It's so much more on point that sometimes it's hard to let it go.
Mm-hmm. There's a coaching cue that I've heard loads of times before, but it's just something that's never clicked with me when I do the exercise, and it's when you squat. Have you ever heard when someone says, okay, now imagine you're like, I think it's like you're pushing the floor away, or like you're like leg pressing the floor or something. And I'm like, that's just never clicked in my head to do that. I'm like, I don't want to imagine pushing the floor away. I want to imagine pushing this weight that's on my back.
Yeah, some cues. I think it's literally that some people don't relate to certain cues. Like the like leg press the floor away thing never really worked for me, because that's kind of already what I'm doing, and like it didn't seem to change how I approached the exercise or how I felt in the exercise when I thought about that, compared to other like good squat cues. But I think it's like different strokes for different folks thing.
So that's
100%.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just say, I completely agree with that. Like for, I don't know, say the squat, I might have 40 cues, but actually what I give a client on one particular day, maybe only 4 of them or 3 of them, or maybe none of them. It's completely, what does that person need on that day? And not every cue is going to make sense to every client. So it is very much just about finding that moment that clicks them and they go, oh, like that. Okay.
Yeah, because they push the floor away from me is either the 3rd or the 4th cue in a series. You can't push the floor away until you've got the tripod foot and you've got the corkscrew going on, right? But once you've got the tripod foot and you've got the corkscrew going on with the bottom of your foot, then pushing the floor away makes sense, because the push is external as well
it's like
as
spreading
down.
the floor. But then I would argue that isn't contained in that cue. But I guess that's what you're saying, isn't it?
It's exactly. You've got to be doing other things at the same time to then make pushing the floor away start to make sense. But that's exactly like, I think, why it'd be so cool to have each of us get a chance to like, all right, cue an exercise and also I want to talk about it as leave the floor open to just come in and be like, I don't have cues for X.
Yes.
And when I try this thing, I feel it only in my shoulders, and it's supposed to be a pec exercise. Right? So it doesn't have to be, because I really love it if everybody felt like super comfortable to come in and just be like, I don't know X.
And I think people would pick those up from what everybody's saying, but I think what you're hinting at is that if we only leave it open to the ones where we're really confident and we've got some really good cues, then actually we might necessarily not learn as much off each other than if we were vulnerable and said, hey, look, this is my teaching bench game is weak or whatever.
Yeah, because if somebody brought pistol squats, I would be like notebook and pen the entire time.
Yeah.
Right. My hips, I have from kickboxing, I have some pretty bad arthritis, so I can't do a lot of the stuff that's required for a pistol squat basically ever. And I'm one of those people that likes to learn by doing. So I feel bad. I don't feel bad. I feel less comfortable teaching that movement because my anatomy doesn't really let me do the movement.
Yeah, my thoughts on pistol squats, that's an interesting one, because I'll do them, but I've never got a client to do them, because for me, they're just a mess. Like if I assume that for most people, they will just look like a mess, and that's part of the reason why people do, squats with a barbell, and why pistol squats is, this advanced exercise, because I can't see my body ever doing a pistol squat in a way that I'm not doing a bunch of whack shit.
Yeah. So that was just a quick idea I had while we were talking.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be super fun.
Do we have an exercise that people would like to do?
Oh, do one now? Yeah.
No, like for next time. We have an idea.
Okay. Yeah, for next time. Because then you could prep, and I can look through my client notes, because I'd love to bring sort of the okay, here's how I taught this to a 50-year-old. Here's how I taught this to a 60-year-old.
Yeah. I really like the squat.
Let's do the squat.
Yeah,
squat's really hard.
Super applicable.
I'll bring my morbidly obese double knee replacement geriatric patient. Client. Nice. Sorry, not patient. I should have said that. They're definitely a client. They were done all of their physiotherapy before they started.
Don't talk about yourself like that.
I know, right? Look, if I speak in the third person, you all think it's somebody else. So, done.
I have a friend.
I have a friend. Yeah. Great tattoos, can't squat. Yeah, squat next week. I'm good.
Yeah,
I love it.
let's discuss squat. Yeah, that sounds great.
I'm all out of questions to debate too. So
okay.
Nice.
Should we? Does anybody have anything else, or should we leave it there for today?
I'm working on a presentation that focuses around using mantras and self-talk, as well as a compelling vision to help people make good eating choices in the moment. The presentation is mostly focused on, like, you just cracked the pizza open. What are you going to do to have 2 slices, close the top, and put it away, or whatever it is, whatever that decision point is. And it would be interesting to, if anybody wants to, outside of this, talk about some of the things that I'm thinking about and see if they resonate or whichever. That's one thing that I've got going on the side, because my leg doesn't work, so I'm doing things that I can do.
Well, I mean, I'll be up for talking a bit about that now. I mean, stuff like, there'd be things. The first things that come to my mind are, I mean, for one, it's like identity level stuff, isn't it? Like the kind of person you think you are. But I think in terms of the example that you gave, I mean, I don't want to be morbid, if that's even the word. But it's kind of too late at that point. So I'd be looking at damage limitation stuff. This isn't really mindset. I guess it would count as mindset. Of eating, if you're going to have the 2 slices of pizza, you load up, for example, on broccoli first, so that you're not actually as hungry. Because I think humans are really bad at beating their cravings. I think once you've had the 2 slices of pizza, if you're down on calories and you're super hungry, I don't see many people who can get out of that bind. I see people who don't eat the pizza to start with, but once people have started, I think it's really hard to stop. So I think having stuff in place like eating fibrous foods beforehand or during, so that you're actually more full, so that you can kind of divert your cravings. But in terms of like the actual mindset stuff, I think having like an identity thing where you're like, I'm the gym guy or something like that would definitely make a difference in terms of how much you would binge on these foods.
Yeah,
what do you guys think?
I find that if you want only 2 slices of pizza, or like, I mean, I'm thinking like if you buy a pizza for yourself and you just wanted a few slices, get a small. If you bought like a pizza and you've got like
So sorry, that's another great point. Let me jump in super quick. How do you click the radial button next to small as opposed to medium and large when you're ordering online, right? How do you click just mushrooms and onions and not ground beef and pepperoni and hot peppers and feta, right? Like how, because it's the decision points, right? That's because, if your approach is to remove decisions entirely, then that's of course going to work, right? Somehow inside my house there are 1750 calories. And I could spend the whole day looking for more calories, but there's only 1750. But whose house is like that? Nobody's house is like that, right? And with the pandemic, at least in Canada, I have 7 different apps with access to 7,000 different restaurants, right? I can order donuts and beer like this.
I mean, as a counterpoint, you could, make sure when you go to the shop, you're full up. Make sure that you don't make those bad decisions in the shop. And then, if we want to get extreme here, you can delete those apps from your phone, or you can put like a blocker on your phone. I know this is getting a bit too much, but if I was obese and somebody suggested that, I wouldn't be able to tell them that that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Freddie here that the target is more fruitful if it's on prevention rather than sort of trying to deal with it while it's already there. So
early in the chain.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'd say to my clients that, if it sounds really simple. I always feel really awkward telling them, but it's like, just don't buy them. I know that seems ridiculous, but like you said, don't go shopping hungry.
I think that
is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
And then if they don't get those snacks, if they're not in the house, then it doesn't matter how bad those cravings get. They can lap the kitchen 17 times, looking in every cupboard, and it's just still won't be there. However weak they're feeling at that moment, and eventually they'll have to either settle for an apple or give up altogether, or just Yeah, or maybe they'll just get bored. But if it's not there to begin with, then it's not down to them feeling strong or weak in the moment.
Yeah, it's like you make the lead time, or you make the activation energy really big for stuff you don't want to do. So for example, in that example, it's like walk to the shop. So the activation energy is so big there, and you make the activation energy small, eat my meal prepped meals, and then that's so much easier for willpower. Yeah.
I guess the reason I'm working on this angle, not I guess, specifically the reason I'm working at it from this angle is because I have lots of clients where the activation energy for satiating their cravings is so small now.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's 3 steps from their bed to their home office. It's 7 steps to their fridge. And if they don't have what they want, it's 7 steps back to the desktop, going onto one of these apps and having whatever it is that they want arrive at their door, prepped and ready within 20 minutes. And the thing is that they're actually working during those 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's more like a fire and forget. And then boom. So working on the techniques to use at that decision point.
Yeah.
Right. Like, are there things you can do at that decision point to change your decision?
Yeah, at that stage it's tough, isn't it? Sorry, Chris.
It is.
No, I was just like trying to answer more specifically Adrian's question. I'm just thinking of something I used to do. Like, so when I decided, I mean, it's not specifically for weight loss or weight gain, but when I was trying to bulk up to put on weight, I was trying to do it as like clean as possible. So if, say, someone in my family ordered a pizza, and you know, I fucking love pizza, so I was like, oh, I just want a slice, but I'd be like, I'm doing it clean, and I'd just say, I can't have it right now, I can have it in a few days. And to me, that was a good like way to stop myself from eating in the moment, is saying, I want to achieve this, so eating this one slice of pizza isn't going to help.
But it's like delaying it. It's like almost like the craving.
Yeah,
the
like,
craving
I know
when
I'm
you're
going to have this thing in a few days, or if I want it.
That's different than trying to tell yourself straight no.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so I would call that a mantra, right? I can have this later.
Yeah.
Right. And if you keep repeating that to yourself, I can have this later. I can have this later. I can have this later. It might be louder than what's inside of you that wants you to eat that pizza.
Yeah, I think that would
definitely
be positive.
So I guess at the very beginning, I didn't quite say exactly what I was saying as super duper well. I have like a 20-slide presentation on this topic that I wanted that if somebody wants to go through with me and bounce their ideas off of outside of this, because it would hog so much time, right?
Yeah. I mean,
but if anybody's interested in that, let me know.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, if we wanted to set like another Zoom call in the week, like that's not to do with like what we do on a Sunday. And if you wanted to like, you know, share your screen and just kind of like just run through the presentation and just kind of jot your ideas and then, you know, do something like that, I'll jump on midweek and, you know, just kind of
I could do that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I have a whole thing. I'll throw out a couple times, maybe in the Instagram group if people are interested.
Pop it in the Instagram group. Yeah, I'll be down for that. It sounds like me and Chris could go and help you out, or give our 2 cents. By the way, Ali, we've if you pop you may have already actually, but if you want to pop your like maybe Instagram if you've got it, we've got a little Instagram group if you want to join.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Where do you want me to pop it?
In the chat. You press the little speech bubble at the bottom. Yeah.
And I'll do that now. I've been really bad at doing anything on it recently. That's it's something that's been on my sort of to-do list, ongoing. Sort of like, oh, I'll deal with that tomorrow. Oh, yeah, I'll get back to that.
I think a lot of us are kind of like that. You know, with social media. Yeah.
I just hate social media so much. I made such a concerted effort to get off it for many years, and then
and then you realize
it's like, I've got to be back on it. Damn it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Like, I think we feel that it's like, you know, you could get off it for personal, or at least I still have them all going for personal, but I just try not to check it too often. And then when the business related stuff, you just realize that you're leaving some reach on the table if you don't do it, and then you're like, okay, I need to get on top of this.
Yeah, you just can't afford not to these days.
Yeah.